going to look different at every company depending on their maturity, their data organization. What they need is different. How does Advizex go about solving for those different challenges and situations?
Actually, this kind of gets to one of the reasons that Advizex is bringing these three elements together. We're talking about AI, we're talking about verticals, and we're talking about as a service. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to bring those things together. And there's a reason for that. So when I was an employee in a business, as part from what I do now, the challenge was always cross-train, right? So you want to have cross-training across your employees because instinctively that the tasks that you have in your business may not require a specialized FTE in databases or sub-application stack or whatever it is. And so you're trying to make the most of the value of your FTEs. But what has happened is we're realizing that when you do a service-based solution, you're able to leverage your FTEs like what we can do with Akil's team on AI, with our database team and other teams, is we can leverage the value of our FTEs with those specializations by applying that expertise across multiple customers in a service-based solution. And we think that this is really kind of the future in our business and in many other businesses, is that whether it's functional or finance or technology related, what an end customer wants to do. You take a retail organization, they sell their products, whether it's building products or jewelry or whatever it is. They don't ultimately want to become both that and an IT company. So how do they avoid that? Well, what we believe is that the end result needs to be a close partnership between that customer and an organization like Advizex that can understand where are the places that in IT that they don't want to be or know they can't be effective in being. And AI is a perfect example of that. You may say, hey, I want to get into AI in my business because I know there's a business value there. I mean, data scientists can be hard to come by. But for organizations like Advizex, where we're doing this on behalf of many customers in this shared service model, we're able to provide them that value without them having to go build it themselves. And to do that effectively really requires this unified vision of a vertical focus so that we're driving those solutions to the needs of those verticals, and the finance side that allows them to align the cost of the technology they're trying to acquire and the value around the services and the expertise to the way they actually get their cash flow, right? Nobody gets their investments, unless you're a startup, by getting a whole bunch of money up front and then says, oh, look, I can take 60% of this and throw it to IT. No, it's got to be this, you got to align those expenses to your revenue or your cash flow. And that's where these three components in our business come together.
Let me just add to that, from another angle. So part of the business value realization with AI is speed to market, right? You need to be, time to value is very important because your whole reason for doing all these AI things is you're trying to get insights quicker than your competition. And so AI infrastructure often creates a bunch of technical challenges that didn't exist before. For example, heat density within the data center and being able to cool now, potentially with liquid cooling, power density, and we've seen customers have to completely overhaul all of their main power. And that can take time and money and delay you from getting a start. And the as a service approach allows us to get customers to market quicker because we don't have to worry about those things. We can spin things up quickly. We can host those infrastructure components in a data center that's already ready for it, where power is available, cooling is available, et cetera. And the customer can focus then on creating the business value as opposed to trying to plug everything in and hope that they don't burn the data center down in the process.
Yeah.
It's a very large CapEx expenditure that a lot of companies are not going to want to go out there to invest in, especially the bigger hardware to actually build a model, then to train it and then to inference it. So Advizex can offer that as a service.
So bringing in those capabilities as the business needs them. Sure. So you avoid that over provisioning. You allow your own internal resources then to be redeployed in a higher value capacity and let us handle some of those managed services.
That's absolutely right. It's for any organization that is dipping their toe into the AI space. If the more people they throw at the technology behind AI means they have less people to actually provide the business insight and be thinking about what are the questions we want to ask of the data? What are the patterns that are going to have relevance to our outcomes? If they're sitting there shoving servers in racks, they're not thinking about their own business. And that's where we can draw these lines of accountability to provide the highest value in all of those segments. To some degree, projects with complexity of AI do need to take a bit of a crawl, walk, run approach. Your best value is by taking some time to think about where are we get the biggest bang for our buck and have small wins that have value to allow you to create this incremental approach to driving deeper into the organization, creating more and more value over time. And that's what we're here to try and help guide our customers through that experience. You know, Akil brought up an interesting point earlier that deserves some attention. The process of securing and understanding the security operations around AI is, we find most of our customers don't even think about that till further down the road. And maybe one of the best ways to understand this criticality is in healthcare. If you look at all the data sets that healthcare organizations have, it's a lot. But there's a lot of PHI, very sensitive data. And you can't just throw it all in the bucket, right? So let's imagine that you started off and said, we're going to do a chatbot. And you just say, okay, we got all this data. Let's just throw it into a large language model, train it all, and let people ask questions. What are the social security numbers of the top 5 patients in the company? You can't do that, right? Yeah. But now you got to think through the security model. And in AI, it can be really challenging because you probably don't want to have the solution that says, well, we're going to have an AI implementation that has this set of security roles and a separate implementation that has a different set of security roles. You're going to have to build a multi-layered model, one that says, here's all the data, and then you're going to process it through another one that applies your security values to it, and so forth, to get that curated response that aligns with the corporate governance policies. It can be really challenging. And again, this is where we can help you think through those things before you make a big investment and find out, oh, crud, now we have to rewind because we now have to secure the values of our output.
The thing is, for a company to create a data lake or data warehouse where you have all the data put in, so you will have both structured and unstructured data put into this data lake. And so companies have to think that this data, who has access to it, who's allowed to put in, who's allowed to modify it, who's allowed to train it. So the data runs in parallel to model creation and everything else. The security of data in AI is very, very critical. And as I pointed out earlier, it's not only the data you train with, because if the data is not curated well and it's not the right kind of data, you'll get a garbage out of your model.
Go ahead, Mitch.
So the thing that happens is when you look at the process flow in retail from acquisition of the product to the sale of the product, every step along the way needs to be optimized for price efficiency, or you're just talking about process waste. And what's really difficult is to figure out where in the chain is the thing happening that is creating the most value waste in the process. And to analyze that, you have to look at it at the scale of what's going on. And that can be really difficult, right? So that's where AI is able to detect patterns in those chains that a human being just can't do. We can process it, but we can't process it at the scale. So we might say, oh, well, this is a place where there's obvious loss, but maybe there's this place that's not so obvious where the loss is magnified because of the volume. And this is how we can take this whole AI approach to discovering the patterns and focusing on the data to understand what is the question we have to ask at the right place of the data to produce massive value outcomes for the customer.
Let's talk about some challenges in getting to that. There are plenty, right?
curating your data.
Yeah, starting
Well,
there.
not only do you have to understand where is your data, what is its form, what is its relevance to the outcome, and kind of understand how to clean out the data that corrupts your data set. So in AI, we don't really have a reference model for truth. It's a statistical accuracy model. So if you just kind of dump everything in the pot, well, if you have a lot of bad stuff that goes in that pot, you're going to get bad outcomes. So you have to clean that data and understand it in that process flow of making sure that you're not only attaching to the valuable data that relates to the questions you're asking, but eliminating the stuff that will corrupt that set.
Akhil, will you build on that for us?
Yeah. Data cleaning is very important because, as you know, in model creation or training the model, the biggest thing is what data you feed into training. So you can create biases, you can create ethical issues, you can get a lot of garbage output out of the model. And then to make your model look a lot better, you may have to do some data augmentation as well. And data augmentation and feature engineering or patterns, as Mitch pointed out, are critical in analyzing what's happening in your enterprise or in your business.
Thanks, Akhil.
Here's an analogy. A data augmentation is kind of like if you go to the doctor's office and they do maybe some kind of a test, maybe some blood work. You've all seen this on TV where they'll add some kind of a dye or some other aspect, and it makes the thing they're looking for more visible. That's what data augmentation is like. It's understanding that process flow and where the data is coming from, and kind of figuring out what data sources provide information to amplify the information we're interested in asking the questions of. And that is what produces the outcomes, or helps us produce the outcomes with consistency that we're looking for.
As we talk about getting our data houses in order, let's turn to HPE. AI from your perspective, tell us more, Tyler, about the strategies that you're employing and how this fits together with the Advizex partnership.
Well, what we're seeing from an HPE perspective is, our partners are having a hard time understanding exactly how to go to market with things. So what we're trying to do is make the AI and all the hardware and software and services that go along with it easily consumable, so that it can be something that the Advizex team and our partner community can go out and scale. Because right now, again, as I said earlier, AI is the thing everyone's talking about, but they think they need it. They just don't understand why. Advizex specializes in going out and saying, and taking a customer's data, putting it on an HP platform, HP software included as well, and helping them derive the value. So our goal is to make it easier for our partner community, Advizex being one of our main partners, to go to market, to be able to have repeatable solutions, and be able to go ahead and drive business that way.
Let's stay on the business case, and anyone can contribute here. Chris, I know you have some good thoughts on this. When it comes to driving ROI, how does Advizex help clients get there?
Well, I mean, in order to do any type of ROI, you need to understand, what the potential for either saving money or returning, in form of greater revenue, and then the cost side of the equation. And I think, the point is right now the cost side of the equation is very difficult for a lot of our customers because of all the things we've been talking about. So, not everybody needs to run out and buy 1,000 GPUs tomorrow. Maybe some people do. But we need to understand, what are you going to get for that? And so a lot of our time is spent, again, helping customers identify the use cases, identify where they can obtain business value from the data that they have, and then identify the gaps that they need to close to be able to get to that point where they can realize that.